Hi, I'm Marin Katusa, and you're watching Market 1 Minute. I'm with Lukas Lundin today, who's a living legend in the resource sector. Lukas, you define the 9th degree of the Pareto's Law. If you look over your 30-year career, over 30 years career, your family has been able to deliver time in and time out. What are some of the rules to your success, or would you say the traits to your family's success?
Marin, I think the trait, family success, I think people is very important, to get the right people, to surround yourself with the right people. Secondly, I think you have to empower the people so they can make the decisions, the right decisions to make the projects going. And of course, they have to have the good assets. You know, we're in a resource business, oil and gas or mining, you have to have good ore bodies or oil fields.
But you also have the mantra of no guts, no glory, and you go where other people would never go and deliver success.
Yeah, I think we did that early on. I think nowadays people go everywhere, so you see more competition, but in 25 years ago, it was less of that. And you know, a good example was we went into Argentina in '91, just when the government changed, and there was a president called Menem came in, and he wanted to encourage investment, and we were able to acquire an asset called Baja Lumbrea, which became a very big copper gold mine over time. And that was because we were early on, had a good asset, and got the right management to take care of it.
What are the 3 commodities you're most bullish about over the next 3 years?
I think obviously we're talking about gold. We're quite bullish with gold over the next 2-3 years. We think, you know, there's a bit of fear in the world and lower inflation, you know, so gold looks very attractive. I think on the supply-demand side, we think zinc looks quite good because, you know, it's actually zinc supplies, you know, some big zinc mines are shut down, so there's about 500,000 tons coming off the market, and so we see a supply deficit, so that should be encouraging. And over time, we see oil pretty good, oil very interesting. We see high, big underinvestment in oil now. It's been down at $50 here almost a year now, and so we see all the large offshore, deep water.
All the expenditures have been
cut to by, we're talking tens of billions. I think it's 50 billion of long-term expenditure being cut off in the deep shore. So that's going to have effect over time, and the shale oil is going to become more effective, but you know, some of that's going to die off and the good part's going to stay on. So over the next 18 months, we could see oil have a good run again.
But within the Lundin group of companies, you also have some really interesting companies, for example, Lucara, which is a dividend-paying stock that has churned the whole diamond industry upside down, where one diamond is covering basically the whole cost and expansion of what you paid for the mine, which, you know, when you look back at the previous owner, they looked almost silly selling it to you for the price they did.
Yeah, this is a diamond pipe. Marin's talking about diamond pipe in Botswana, and we have a company called Lucara, and we put it in production about 4 years ago. And it was a pipe owned by De Beers, and the amazing thing is we saw they had broken diamonds when they tested the pipe, and then they thought the diamonds were too small, the pipe too small, so we picked it up, and of course had broken a lot of diamonds, and then we put a new process in, and we had less breakage of diamonds, and we started producing a lot of large diamonds. And I think this mine produced over 50% of all the diamonds over 100 carats in the world.
Which is an anomaly. That's kind of like when you look at Codelco, Chile's copper company produces 30% of the world's copper. This is almost like a monopoly in a way.
Almost a monopoly. You know, we have one more big mine that produces big diamonds called Ledsing in Lesotho, but apart from that, there's not many big mines producing large diamonds. And we have a very smart young man who runs the company called William Lamb, and he put in a new process which created less breakage.
Who's probably the most intense competitive individual I've met in the resource sector.
So it's been a very exciting project, and I think, you know, we were fortunate enough to be able to acquire the project, and fortunate enough to have William that put us this process that's a bit simplified, broke less, and fortunate enough to have this pipe that's really amazing pipe. You know, we only produce about 0.5% of the carats in the world, but we produce a lot, and every carat we produce is gem quality.
So what is the success of being able to attract such incredible talent who are willing to change their life? You look at Keith Hill, moved to Kenya to make Africa Oil a success. Ron Hochstein moved to Ecuador to make the company a success. How do you attract people like that, and more importantly, keep them for multiple decades?
I think attract them because I think they think it's a good working environment. I think they have fun. You know, you give them a lot of leeway to do what they have to do, and so there's interesting projects they're tackling, and they're not encumbered by too much bureaucratic work. You know, they can do what they have to do, and I think they, like we said earlier, you empower them, and they get empowered, and they enjoy it.
And they're all equity large shareholders.
They're equity large shareholders. They have a have a big chance of making a lot of money also. So I think that mixture works well. If they go work for a big organization, there are many more restraints.
One thing I think that your group does better than any other group in the market is the social responsibility in mining. Let's take Africa Oil, for example, or Lundin Petroleum, or even Lundin Gold. How you establish with the Lundin Foundation and you educate, you enable the locals. Can you cover some of that other mining companies should learn from the Lundin Group?
I think I have to give a lot of credit to the whole business nowadays. Everybody does a lot of social work, and that's become extremely important over the last 15 years. That the social work and the communities around us, they have to see that they benefit also, and not only the national government. So, and unfortunately, it's become a lot of work for the companies to make sure that the local population is empowered. And we do a lot of social work, help with small farms, open up hospitals, schooling and education and all this. And we try to do the conjunction with the country itself and the local government we work in. And this is, I think the emphasis on this has become extremely important. It's not just the ore body, you have to make sure the people around them benefit from the ore body. If not, you see like what's happened in oil and gas business, like in Niger Delta, it's become it's become a civil war because all the oil disappeared into Lagos, all the money, and the Delta didn't get any money, so it became a very complicated issue that is very hard to solve today. So nowadays, I think companies have to start with that immediately and make sure we try to solve as many problems we can before we get into production and make sure everybody benefits.
How would you explain what the corporations under your group of companies, the mantra to shareholders that don't know you, what is the corporate statement and to attract investors?
I think corporate statement for us is we're trying to find good management, we're trying to concentrate on large ore bodies or oil fields, and we're definitely looking at the return on investment. And also, we're very big shareholders in all our companies, and we put a lot of money up ourselves. Like in Lundin Gold right now, we've put in 120 million, or the $400 million been raised. So
you own 30% of the company.
We own 30% of the company. So we invest with investor. We make the money when investors make the money.
That's the key, and we've been on many site visits together. I think one differentiating factor, this is a very volatile and risky business, but the Lundin Group of companies, you always know that Lukas will never walk away from a company. He will always be there to make it work, whether it takes 3 years, 5 years, that the company won't be abandoned.
No, it never be abandoned. Sometimes, we may not, we're not geniuses at all times. So, so some projects you do, you have a failure and then you have to restart again. But, but we stick with a company and restart it, or try to fix what we did wrong, or find a new asset for it.
When you see corporations like Potash Corp and Agrium discussing to mergers, Codelco's on the ropes, the president came out and said we need government help and support. Where do you see the industrial commodities over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think the industrial commodity I'm very positive on in general, because I think everybody talks about all the problems in the world, but we still grow at 2-3% a year. So we have some hiccups along the line, but so there's going to be big demand for industrial commodities over the next 3 to 5 years. We have some oversupply in copper, but like supply and demand is now we have underinvesting in it, and then over time, the supply tighten up and it'll be good again. So I'm very bullish.
What would be the one commodity that could surprise everyone over the next 5 years with a significant increase in price on a black swan event, in your opinion?
I think copper could surprise you, because now there's so much negative in the copper business, and at $2 is a lot of underinvestment. And I think, we can shoot through this oversupply quite quickly, and suddenly, and Codelco, like you saw yesterday, announced they produce 30% of all the copper in the world, and they have major problems.
And no one's talking about it.
No.
That's 3 times more impact than Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
If Saudi Aramco came out with that comment in the oil sector, oil would move 20-30%. Copper went down on the news.
I know copper, and they need serious investment, and Codelco is a state-owned company, and they should siphon some of the money to other social projects.
That's right.
And they have major labor problems. The Chilean worker is very overpaid compared to the rest of the world. So, if Codelco has too many hiccups, then it's going to make a major dent in the supply of copper.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, but today, we don't talk about it. We all talk about what's coming on stream, and
You have incredible assets in Lundin Petroleum. You're trading at about 1/9 to 1/8 the value of Statoil. And I look at the value of those assets. It would I would not be surprised if Statoil tried to make a play for Lundin Petroleum, but you own enough that no one could take it out unless it was a price that you're happy with. What is the future of those world-class deposits?
I think future world-class deposits are better and better. I think Statoil came out, basically Lundin Petroleum has founded one of the largest fields in the world in 2010 called John Sverdrup. It's up to 3 billion barrels. We put in production now with Statoil. We have 22% and Statoil has 40%. And those world-class assets they're definitely going to be survivors. We're talking about producing oil below $25 a barrel. We're talking
long life in a secure jurisdiction.
We're talking producing 600,000 barrels a day from there.
That's a serious field.
So it's one sort of Norwegian production or one sort of Canadian oil production. So it's very, very large. Those assets always will survive.
And it's a very undervalued company. Would you see someone maybe making a bid for it?
It's quite difficult. Statoil owns now 20% of the company, and the family owns 30%. And in this current environment in Norway, Statoil could not take it over because the Norwegian government is worried to have too few players on their continental shelf. But that could change over time, but it'd be very hard for them to take over our approval.
Now you also are a believer in the green energy sector. You're a major shareholder in Etrian. Where do you see the future growth in green energy?
I think in solar and wind, I think green energy last year spent more than oil and gas and infrastructure.
And the costs are significantly dropping.
So the green energy is going to be a very major player in the world over the next 10 years.
I agree with you on
that's
that.
the way. So we know we're very involved in Japan and in Italy, and I think that's going to, and the costs coming down very dramatically, and the solar panel, it catch more energy at a lower cost. So it's going to be a major factor in the world.
Now, you've been involved in the uranium sector for over 20 years. Where do you see the uranium sector over the next 5 years?
That's a tough one. I've been involved for 20 years. I've never made any money, and it's very hard to predict where uranium.
So the ones who know it the best love it the least.
Yeah, and uranium, obviously at this prices, the business can't really function. Very hard for us to build, mine, or produce uranium at these low prices. So logically, you see uranium stronger, but then we have a lot of uranium still produced in the world in stockpiles, and that's tend to come out always at the wrong time. But if you look at the fundamentals, we should have stronger uranium price over the next 5 years.
I can't emphasize enough to everyone watching this. I've been around the block long enough to know who's who in the zoo. And if you're looking to invest in the resource sector, start with the Lundin Group of companies. And Lukas, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today, and looking for very exciting times in the future here.
I agree.